In this section, we're going to look at how to restore from a backup and some of the options that are available to you when restoring from a backup. So we're going to work through three examples: restoring from a SharePoint backup, restoring from a OneDrive backup, and restoring from an Exchange Online backup. So for the first example, we're going to restore some content into a SharePoint document library from a SharePoint backup. So we're going to work with this site here, the finance site, and this library, the confidential documents library. So if I browse to that quickly, I have it open in the browser here. You see we've got three documents and they've all got slightly different metadata. So confidential 1 was modified 33 minutes ago by the administrator. Confidential 2 and 3 were modified on the 10th of June 2015 by Alain Dion. And they have additional metadata associated with them. If I look at this document as well, confidential 1, and go down to the version history, we'll see that it also has several versions in its version history. So I'm going to delete this data now and then restore it from the backup. So I'm going to select all these documents and click delete. And click delete again to confirm. And now they've been deleted. Now, if we imagine a scenario where these documents have been deleted long enough that they're no longer present in the site recycle bin or the site collection recycle bin, so there's no longer an easy way to restore them from SharePoint, we can look at how we can leverage our Essentials backup to restore those documents. So if I just park this library on the left and then bring Essentials up on the right. Now I'll just move this across slightly so we can see into the backup navigator a bit more clearly. So within the backup navigator, I've got the backup project for the finance site, and the most recent backup I've created is this one at the bottom, the full backup. So if I drill down into that and double click on the confidential documents library, you'll see those are the three documents that have been backed up along with their metadata. So if I select those documents and right click and choose restore, I'm going to be presented with several options. So firstly, I have the option to include all versions or specify a set number of versions, maybe the last two versions. I have the option to defer required fields. What this will do is if there are some metadata fields that are now required in the library the documents are being restored to, but the backup documents don't have values for those fields, it will restore the document anyway. And I also have the option as to whether or not I want to restore permissions with the document. So you can imagine if the documents have been deleted for a long time, perhaps the permissions on the source library have changed, and it mightn't be desirable to restore permissions. But if it was only a fairly recent deletion, maybe you'd wish to restore permissions with them. So let's go and choose to include all versions for this particular backup restoration and click OK. So now the tool is restoring the documents, and if I click on details, we'll be able to see each item as it progresses. So it's restoring these with their metadata and versions also. When this restore is complete, we'll be able to reference the log and view how the restore has gone, if you like, and then do some post restore analytics on that, or analysis should we wish. So there we go, 3 items processed successfully. If I click on view log, we can see that each of those has a line item. And now if I refresh on the left here, we'll see that the documents have been restored. Now, if I just maximize that and now look at one of them in particular, for example, confidential 1, and go back down to version history, we'll see the full version history has been restored with the document. And if we look across to the metadata, that has also been restored correctly. So the modified dates and also the modified by and the additional metadata. So that's restoring documents into a SharePoint library. We can also restore the entire library. So again, if I click on confidential documents and go to library settings and go to delete this document library and send that off to the recycle bin. So now that's now been deleted. Again, if we imagine that this library has been deleted long enough that it's no longer available in the recycle bin, and we can then choose to restore it from our Essentials backup. So let's go back and do that again. So I'm going to just maximize my Essentials view here and right click on that library and choose restore. Again, it says, are you sure you want to restore the selected items to their original location? Click yes. Do you want to send a notification? No, not in this instance. So now it's showing me the wizard for restoring this library. So here we can choose whether or not to restore content types, content and versions. All versions are a set number of versions, and whether we want to restore the permissions, views, and then under the advanced options here, we have options such as overwrite if file exists. So if you wanted the restore to overwrite the source, you can select that. You can also do things like filter out certain types of data from the restore. So I'm going to go ahead and click finish, and that will kick off restoring that library to the site. As before, I can click on details and view each step of the restore as that's carried out. And then once that's taken place, I can then go and view the restore in the logs to see how successful it's been. Okay, so the list has been restored successfully. If I click on view log, that will show me the line items for the job. Now, if I browse back to my SharePoint site here, you can see on the left we currently don't have the confidential documents library, but if I refresh, so that will refresh the view since I've done the restore. It now appears on the left there, confidential documents, and if I click on it, it contains the documents that were included in the library. And also if I drop down to the version history, all of the versions have been restored too. And if I go and look at the details of one of these documents and scroll down a little bit, you'll see that all of the metadata has been restored as well. So that's restoring a SharePoint library. You can also restore a SharePoint site. So I could go to the finance site from there, right click and choose restore. Work through the restore wizard here, and that will restore the site and the contents within that site. So next, let's look at how to restore items out of place. So this is how to restore an item to a location that's different to the location it was deleted from. Now, this is possible in Essentials at the item level. So I'll show you as I browse down into this backup. At the item level, if I right click, I have the option to copy rather than just restore. But if I try that at the library or site level, that's not open or available to me. So let's go and run through an example. If I double click on this library here on the left called Documents, you'll see it contains lots of documents, but it doesn't contain a document called Confidential 1. So if I go into the backup I've created here and go into this library Confidential Documents and view that document there, Confidential 1, I can right click and copy that and now go into a different library, so different from the one it was backed up from, paste it into this library Documents here and click Paste. And what that will do is it will initiate the migration wizard and migrate that item from its location in the backup to a new library. So as I progress through this, it's picking up the metadata. So the content type, we can choose a content type at the target. It's picked up the default one here, meta1 document, and mapped all the metadata accordingly. So next I can open the advanced options and choose whether to copy it with all its versions or a set number of versions. I could choose to overwrite if a document with the same name did exist in the library. It doesn't in this case. And we have a few other options from there, such as copy permissions. So if I click on finish, now that will start to copy that item from the backup into its new location in the source. So we'll give it a second to run. As before, if I click on details, we can view the details of that job as it progresses, and then once it's complete, we can view the log and see how that's progressed. Okay, so one item has been moved successfully. Now, if I go again and double click on this library here, Documents, you see that it now contains the document Confidential 1. And if I right click and choose to view in the browser, and just open that out slightly, and we'll see that it's been brought across with all its metadata from when it was backed up. So that's how to restore out of place. Now you can also restore out of place from OneDrive, and we'll look at the OneDrive restore later in this video. But again, you see you have the option to copy and paste items, but it isn't a function that's available in the Exchange backup. So again, if I drill into an Exchange backup, the option to copy is grayed out. So there's some context about restoring out of place. So next, let's look at restoring something from a OneDrive. So I've created a OneDrive backup on the right here for these three users: Adele, Alex, and Alan. So if I go into Adele's OneDrive and we pick a document with a easily recognizable name. So let's go for product marketing info. So if I go into her OneDrive, which is here, and go to view in the browser, and we see that you have that document should be down here. Let's go and sort under name, product marketing info. So I'm just going to delete that from her OneDrive. There we go. That's now deleted, and I'm going to go back into, let me in fact just again park this on the left and park this on the right, into Essentials, into her OneDrive backup, right click and choose restore, restore with all versions, and click OK. And that will restore that document back into Adele's OneDrive. There we go, one item processed successfully. Now when I refresh the view on the left, we should see it's come back. Product marketing info, again, along with all the original metadata. So that's how to restore documents into a user's OneDrive. So finally, let's go and restore some Exchange Online emails. So again, let's stick with Adele and look into Adele's inbox in this backup I've created here. And there's an email in her inbox, XT2000 datasheet. So let's go and sign in as Adele into her inbox in Office 365. So I'm going to go to .com, sign in, MSTD 527. So now I'm signed in as Adele. If I click on Adele's mailbox and I search for engineering, you see we've got that email there, XT2000 datasheets. If I delete that from there, now it's gone. Okay, so if I go back into Essentials and right click on that email, in fact I'll do the same as we did before, I'll just place that on the left, right click and choose restore and click yes. That will now restore the email back to Adele's inbox. There we go, one item processed successfully. So now on the left again, if I search for engineering, you see it's reappeared at XT2000 datasheets because I've restored it from the backup. So a couple of other things to point out: you can also restore entire folders, so restore all the content within the inbox, or restore all the folders by restoring at the mailbox level. And similarly for OneDrive, you can also restore libraries like we did in SharePoint. Okay, so those are the examples of how to restore from a backup and some of the options that are available to you when you carry out a restore.